For many, Christmas ended on Thursday night. I was driving in the car yesterday. I realized there were no Christmas carols on any of the radio stations after being played, it seems, for the last 2 months. But for us, Christmas has not ended. It has just begun. The church celebrates Christmas this year for about a 2.5-week period, a season in which we are called to reflect more and more upon this incomparable event of God becoming one with us. We'll celebrate this next Sunday's Feast of the Epiphany, and then our Christmas season will end the following Sunday on the Feast of the Baptism of the Lord. And so within this season, we have today's feast, the Feast of the Holy Family of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. And how appropriate we have this feast, because it's a clear reminder for us that God came among us not in a distant or unusual way, but in a fully human way with perfect humility. For what is more basic to our shared experience than that of family? And so today we are called to look at the family in which Jesus lived, but also to reflect upon the family that God is, a communion of persons, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, one God. And then to see how our families and our relationships are meant to be ordered in that love. Our first reading is taken from the book of Sirach, about 200 years before the birth of Christ. The timeless truth of how God has established family life and what His plan is for it. We hear that He sets a father in honor over his children, and a mother's authority He confirms over her sons. Family life is not some secular organization that can be changed according to popular thought. It is a divine institution established by God, this communion of love between a man and a woman, ordered for their mutual blessing and for their sanctification, open always to that sublime gift of married love, the gift of children. We hear that within this order, parents have a special and exalted position, one of honor and authority, that children owe to their parents special respect and obedience. And of course, this authority is never meant to be abused. It is always meant to be lived out, again, in that very example of God and His identity, always in selfless love. This is the emphasis of our second reading from St. Paul's letter to the Colossians, that all of us, in whatever role we have in our family life, are to act with heartfelt compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience, that it is love and love alone that is the bond of perfection. The end of that second reading then concludes with that intended dynamic of husband and wife. And whenever we hear that, we can be tempted to discount it as being somewhat outmoded. And we will be so impoverished if we fall into that temptation. And how impoverished we are now, because so many have done it. First and foremost, St. Paul is expressing an absolute equality between husband and wife. This would have been deemed revolutionary when it was written. But in that total equality, there is a different expression of that same love that each is to give to the other. Different roles, if you will. The wife with a deference to her husband. The husband in love that always looks to serve his spouse. All of us are called to this order in family life, and of course the Holy Family shows it to us in near perfection. Just think for a moment of the reverence and the respect that Saint Joseph had for his wife. Think of the holiness and the gentleness of Mary as she cared for her husband and her son. Joseph and Mary loved God above all else. And our gospel shows that example of faithfulness as they honor the custom of the law. They enter the temple and they encounter Simeon. This is his Christmas moment as he bursts forth in joyful praise of God as he encounters this child. He exalts that he has seen the salvation promised by God, but then he warns that the child will be a sign of contradiction. A sword will pierce the heart of his blessed mother. We see here again that this holy family is not some romanticized and unattainable ideal, but is one that is associated with all the struggles that all of our families have. Sadly, far too many have repudiated this established order for families in today's world. We have forgotten, it seems, that family life is first and foremost a sacred calling. It is sacramental. We have turned away maybe from the practice of family prayer that is so essential for the well-being and stability of the family. Tragically, so many voices in our culture denigrate and obscure and distort the truth of human love, and many have fallen prey to their distortions. And we see those results in our society, as in so many ways it seems to be crumbling as the foundation of all societies, that of a stable family, has been lost by so many. Let us return to embrace this truth and wisdom before it is too late. Let us see marriage for what it is and can only be, the union between a man and a woman in their mutual fidelity and generosity, so that they are to be sanctified, made holy, prepared for the kingdom of heaven. Then the truth and the love of Christ, not the empty lies of so many in our culture, will be what dwells in us. And then we will have the attitude of St. Paul, being thankful to God for everything, with psalms and gratitude in our hearts, living like the Holy Family, in that very communion of love that God is and that he wishes to share with us.